This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. We're continuing in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Lamed Beis. We're up to Seif Tes Zayin. Now, the Rama just said that if we see that the Tzuras Ha'os is not Ketikunai, then it's going to be puzzle even though the Tinoi could read it Kehalacha. So even though the child could read it Kehalacha, if we see it does not have the Tzuras Ha'os, it's not going to be kosher. So now the Mechaber continues. Ha demachsharinan kishenivsak ha'os. That which we render it kosher if the ois is split, that's only davka kishenichtav bekashrus. That's only if it was written correctly. Va'achar kach nifsak. Avla metchila kishenichtav hayasham nekev v'nifsak bay. But if originally when it was written, there was a hole and it was split. Oyim regel hakaf hapshuta. Oy kiyotzeba magia l'soif haklaf. Or let's say the long chaf, or a similar letter, reaches the end of the klaf. Bli hekav klaf metchilasai. And therefore the bottom of the leg of the chaf never has hefsek vil. There's no parchment space between it and the bottom of the page. So in all these cases, it was never written correctly to begin with. Pasal, it is pasal. Says the Mishna Berura. So again, this that we're saying, that if there's a hefsek in the letter, that the Mechaber said, nifsak achas miha oisiyos, that a child who's not a chacham and not a tipush, he could read it as a letter, it's kosher. That's if it was written correctly to begin with. It was never written correctly, it's not going to be good. It says Mishna Berura Katan and Gimel kishenivsak ha'os v'adin ma'demachshel el b'sif tesvav. Likewise, that which we kasher earlier in sif tesvav im nikav regel ha'hei. If let's say the little leg of the hay had a hole in it, aval b'nikav chalaloi demachshel shama mechaber. But that which the Mechaber is machshir hay, even if there's a hole in the middle, hu afilu nikav koidem aksiva. That's even if there's a hole before it was written. V'loi nokad sham im la'achar shenichtav v'chulu elamishum seifa denikav regal. There, the only reason it speaks about if it happens afterwards is for the case where there's a hole in the leg. But where there's a hole in the middle of the hay, that would be good even if the hole was there originally. Sivkata nun dalad. V'achar kach nifsak. What's the reason? What's the reason why the letter is only good if it's split after it was written, not if it was split before? Says in Mishna Berura, v'hatam, the reason is, mukaf kvil rak ve'esak siva. You only need it to be surrounded by parchment when it was written. Accordingly, even if the hole reached, right, if there's a hole in a letter, the issue is it's not mukaf gvil, it's not surrounded by parchment because there's a hole there. So accordingly, even if the hole reached from letter to letter, so now it's mamish not mukaf gvil, not on both sides, not on either letter, Gam kein kosher. Achin haderech chayim hilchos kriyas haTorah bedin chavzayin machmir bezeh. Derech chayim is machmir if the whole reaches from one letter to the next. Ayin beber halacha. V'da oid, you should know further. The be'inyan negias ha'oisiyos, regarding letters that are touching. Afilu miyoidea beveru shenasa la'achar ksiva. If let's say you know for sure the letters were only began to touch after they were written, gam kein pasal. They are also pasal. So now we're talking about a new psal, not when there's a hole by the letter, but when the two letters touch. That's a problem even if the two letters, let's say they melted a little bit and they ran after. Derech HaChaim Sham L'chein Masham Be'Shmuel Be'Evan O'ezer B'Sim Kov Chav Hes V'Katan Chav Tes Ayin Sham D'Sfir LaGam Kein T'Tzarach Lachosh L'Teretz Rishon Shebebeis Yosef V'Dir HaMaschal V'Im Taimer V'Chulu De'ein Mechalek B'Negia. There's no difference in touching Bein Imloi Hukaf Be'Eis HaKsiva Ay Achar Kach. There's no difference in touching whether it was not surrounded at the time of the writing or afterwards. Sivkatan Nun Hey. Mitchila. Uve Safek Masai Nasa Hanekev. Now let's say okay, so now we say like this. If the whole came before it was written, it's pasul. If the whole came after it was written, it's kosher. Let's say you don't know when the whole came. Did the whole come before? Did the whole come after? I mean, this is a classic question in all halacha. You have an animal, and there's a mum, or there's a tarfus. When did it happen? So the question is there a cheskas kashrus over here? Uvesafik masay nasa hanekev toilin da'achar ksiva nasa. We assume it came later. Why? The mistama im haya be'esak siva, because mistama, if it was at the time that it was written, haya hasoifer royeyu, the sofer would have seen it. Im loy shanekev katan ma'od, unless it's a tiny, tiny hole that you could say, well, maybe the sofer missed it. Now the Shevet HaLevi, quoted by the Dirshu, says that if you have a sofer who's not becheskas medakdik b'masav, it will be very difficult when you find the hole, because it could have been there all along. Also, the Shevet HaLevi, quoted by the Dirshu, says that if there are other holes in the klaf, not in the makam of the ksiva, then you can't be mekel if there's another hole in makam ksiva, because it's muchach that some of the holes were there before. So you can't say, well, those holes were there before, but this hole that passes the Sefer Torah, that only came after. Sort of the other holes are moira, they demonstrate, or at least make it a very strong likelihood that they were there all along. Okay, we'll hold over here. We'll pick this up, Bez Hashem, tomorrow. Good to see everybody back. Chol Tov, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.